Just want to start off by saying that you should all be very proud of your hard news stories. Even if you didn't get the grade that you wanted or was a little bit lower than you were expecting, that's always because the first one, it stings. You know, that first one, I know you have a lot of things that you're dealing with. You're learning AP style. For a lot of you, it might be the first time that you actually went out and have had to do an interview with somebody, so maybe you didn't get the information that you needed. Maybe you missed some of the instruction assignments, like word count or something like that. So those kinds of things can bring your grade down. But what I saw overall was that you're all on the right track. You're applying the lessons for the most part that we've been covering, and that you have a lot of potential just to improve. And that's why I give you so much feedback. Please take the time to look at the feedback. Make sure you really understand it. If you don't understand it, message me. I'll clear it up with you. I'll go back and forth writing to you, or I'll get on the phone and we'll talk it through. But I want to make sure you really understand the feedback that I gave you, because that's how you're going to get better. And the first assignment is usually the one that stings the most. After that, once you start to see the feedback that I give you, and you start to apply it on the future writing assignments, you're going to see that your grades get better and better because of the fact that you're growing and evolving, and that's really what I want from you. So again, overall, I can tell that you all at least are in the ballpark. Of course, you can use improvement, and that's why I spent the time to give you so many comments. But I can see that you're all on the right track, so keep it up. You should be really proud of what you did. Even though I give you guys individual feedback, I did see a few things that throughout the assignments that popped up, so I want to make sure to verbalize it here too, so that it's clear for everybody. So even if I didn't give you this specific comment on your assignment, this is still good for you to know, because I don't want you to make this mistake in the future. One of them is, and this wasn't really covered in the book, so I didn't take points off of this, but I want to make sure that you do understand it, is lead with the quote. And what I mean by that is you shouldn't start off the sentence with John Smith said, and then do the quote. It should be the quote first, and then said John Smith. So it's a great day outside today, said John Smith. Not John Smith said, it was a great day today outside. So hopefully I'm articulating this all right to you. But anytime you have a quote, I should say most of the time, almost always, when you have a quote, just start the paragraph off with the quote. Even if you haven't introduced who the person is yet, you always start the paragraph with the quote first, or the sentence off with the quote first, because the quote is the most exciting thing, and the reader can figure out. The nice thing with reading is you can figure it out after who said it and put sense of it quickly. But you know how we have the expression "don't bury the lead." You don't want to bury the quote either. So start with the quote in the sentence and then attribute it. Go also with the attributing it. Always use said. Said John Smith, said Bill, whatever, said. Don't find other ways of using said. You don't have to say explained, you don't have to say commented, you don't have to say anything but said. And I know that kind of goes against maybe what you think you've learned in previous English classes, and it is to a degree, because I know you want to try to mix it up. You want to keep using the same word, try to find other words. But the important part, if you think about it, of that sentence is the quote. The quote is what makes it exciting. The quote is what tells the story. You don't need to keep mixing it up with other words after the quote. Just use said. Another reason why you don't want to try to use another word is you got to be careful, because sometimes those words that you say, if you use another word besides said, could interject some of your opinion. So for example, if you said, great, now I'm trying to think of another word, but if you said, commented or whatever, it could have a different connotation to it. I'm trying to think of a great example right now, and I can't. But point being, I'm sure this will come to me after the video is done. I won't make you watch another video with my example. Point being is, if you use a different word sometimes, it could interject your opinion. And said is a very neutral word. It's not interjecting any opinion. It's just what the person said. So long and short of it is, have the quote, start off the sentence with the quote, attribute it to the person using said, and that's it. That's all you have to do. And the last thing with the attribution is, a lot of you didn't get a name. So you said a resident at the place, or some of you just did a first name, said Joe. Get their first and last name. Because remember, going back to our chapter of attribution, you want to make sure you attribute these quotes to somebody. So I know it's hard to ask for somebody's name. I mean, the thing is, this isn't being published anywhere anyways. So sometimes there's hesitation for people because they don't want to actually appear in the newspaper. For right now, you're just practicing. The only person that's seeing it is your instructor, so they should be all right with that anyways. But even if you do get a job, eventually if you want to work in media, you got to get that first and last name, and you got to get the age later on. But I'm not making you guys do that right now. But you got to get at the very least, the first and last name. So you're at an event, you get someone's quote. Can I please have your first and last name to spell it? It helps give credibility to the story. You can say something like that to them. But you got to get a name for that. You can't just say said a resident or said someone at the event. Get the full name. All right, I think that covers some of the overall issues that I saw in the stories. And then, of course, look at my feedback, too, because that got more specific for your assignments. Let's take a look at what you're doing this week. You've got, I need to put my little pointer here, so hopefully you can still see this. You've got chapters 14, 15, and 16. 3 chapters, though 16 is very short. Take the quiz, complete the exercise. You guys have gotten to the flow of this, so you know what that's all about. Finish your profile story. Of course, that's due at the end of this week. And then begin your final story, which I'm going to talk about in just a minute. And then continue to read a few stories each day in the Washington Post. And for this, so remember, one of the reasons why I wanted you to start reading the Washington Post or any news every week is that you can start to connect the dots of the things we're learning in this class to what you see there. For this week, when you read the Post, look at how they do quotes. Look at, do they start off a quote? How they start off the quote of a sentence, how they use said almost all the time, and how they almost always attribute it. Though we are going into a little issue with anonymous sources now, with this presidency. So there is some of that going on. That's a big issue in the media right now. Media using anonymous sources more than I think a lot of people think they should be. So that's another whole side. There's another whole issue. But for the most part, you're going to see them attribute it always to somebody, start off the sentence with a quote, and use said. So take a look at that as you read this week. Okay, let's take a look here in your homework section. This is the quiz, this is the exercise. Your final assignment. Your final assignment is you're going to be either doing a hard news story or a profile story. So it's an either. You're choosing one. You're either going to do another hard news story or you're doing another profile story. This one's worth a little bit more. It's worth 150 points. Normally they're worth 100 points. This is worth 150 points, so it's worth a little bit more. Here I have your description of if you choose a hard news story, what you need. If you have a profile story, what you need. It's basically the same thing as the ones you've done before. The only difference, there's just minor differences here. For a hard news story, before I said you only needed one human source for a hard news story. Now you would need 2 and 4 quotes. So you need 2 different human sources and 4 quotes if you're doing a hard news story. And it's also a little bit more words, 650 to 750 words. So it's a little bit more than the first one that you did. For the profile story, same thing that changes. You need at least 2 human sources, 4 direct quotes, and the word count is the same on this one, but 2 human sources. So if you're profiling somebody, you might have to get somebody else that knows that person, that works with that person, that's life has been affected by that person. Depends on whom you're actually interviewing, so it's hard for me to give specifics. But you got to find someone else that can speak about that person. So it's a little bit more work, but that's part of the profile story here. So if you have any questions about that, let me know. But those are really the only big differences, except for I got an except for this little last piece here. Assignments are going to be graded stricter than they were before. What I mean by that is I give you a lot of comment, a lot of feedback on your stories. If I notice the same exact mistakes being made, so for example, I say, you really got to work on AP style, your AP style needs help, make sure you understand AP style, go back and review it. And I see that there was no AP effort at all, or that they're just the same mistakes over and over again, even the ones that I gave you comments on your other stories. Then when I normally would have maybe taken 10 points off, I'm going to take 15 or 20, So just be aware of that. If I say in both of your stories, I say you really got to work on story structure, your structure is off, you're putting important facts at the bottom of the story. And then the same thing on this final, your facts are on the bottom of the story. Well, if your assignment was a B before, it might be a C this time. So the point I'm just trying to make is you have to apply the feedback. It's got to be better than you had before because I want you to improve. I want you to grow. So that's why I'm really stressing that. Okay, and that is due on um, July 16th, 11:59 p.m. So Sunday the 16th. So you've got 3 weeks for this. Your other stories have been 2 weeks. This one will give you an extra week. So you got 3 weeks to do this, and just keep in mind that the last week, so week 8 of this course, nothing else will be due. Nothing, or I should say, nothing else will be assigned except for working on your hard news story. So your last week of the class, this is it. So my recommendation to you is during these next 2 weeks, do all your reporting, get all your information, start to actually write the story, and then that last week you can really spend the time to, write the whole story and edit. You can spend hours and hours editing. You'll notice your grade will be much better. Going back, taking a look at other content from the weeks before and making sure that you have that incorporated in your story. So that last week you can really take the time to fine tune. If you wait to write this, the last few days before it's due, it's just probably not going to be a good grade. It's going to be, like I said, it's graded much stricter. So you can't really get away with it. So that's why I'm giving you that last week. I hope that you have all the information ready for that last week, and then you'll be good to go. Okay, I think that's everything. That covers everything here. You only got a few. We're week 6 already. You got 3 more weeks, like I said, and week 8 is just working on this. So you guys are really close. I'm looking forward to reading those profile stories. I give you feedback again on your profile stories pretty quickly, so you'll be able to apply that on your final story. But any questions, please message me. We're getting near the end here, so I want you to really understand what's required of you before we get to the end, because this is when these grades are really starting to count, right? This is when 150 points is worth a lot. So I want you to really make sure you understand your assignments. And again, don't forget, you can always look at my grades, figure out what's been assigned, figure out what your points are to calculate your grade and kind of see where you stand. So you can always figure out your grade on your own. I keep it pretty up to date, so you can always go take a look there. All right, any questions, message me, but keep up the good work. We're almost there. You guys are doing a great job.